Hi, everyone. Um, it's so nice to be invited and to give a keynote speech. I'm so honored, especially because, when I started writing, when I was young, people would just say I was a loca, that I was crazy. And so to have people ask me to do a keynote speech is really wonderful and validating. And it's so great that it's a university and it's Region 8. I'm supposed to mention Region 8. So anyway, but no, congratulations. It's been a lot of hard work. And I'm so happy that my work, Confessions of Women from East LA, is getting the opportunity to be at the Kennedy Center. Wow. um, so I want to share with you my journey. I only have 30 minutes, so I'll try to be fast. And I'm 52 years old, so it's always nice to go back in time. And I love telling you my age. I love telling you that I'm 50. Oh, actually, I'm 51, but yeah, March 19th is my birthday, and I'm going to be 52. And I've heard that at age 52 is when a woman officially becomes a woman. And I'm a shaman in training, which means that is my winter. The female cycles, there's the virgin, maiden, mother, and then there's the crone. And I guess at 52, I become a crone. I become a wise woman. And it's so appropriate that you pick me to give you some words of wisdom. Anyway, so I was always a writer. I was born a writer. I am very lucky. I'm one of the few lucky human beings on this planet that, since I can remember, I knew I was going to be a writer, a performer, and an artist. And I've done all those three. I've done a lot more. I'm a Renaissance woman. And I knew that I was here to tell stories. I knew that I wasn't here to be looked at. I was here to be heard. I tell people I'm lucky I'm not a bad looking woman, and I was a pretty attractive young woman. But I actually came here to be heard. So I knew that I came here to tell stories. And so I started telling stories when I was 5 years old. I would tell a story about a feminist aunt, and and my parents would say, "Oh, mija, tell our relatives a story about the little feminist aunt." And I would tell them the story, and they'd be like, "Oh my God, she's so talented." And so then I continued telling stories. So at age 8, I wrote my first short play, and at age 11, I wrote my first. I wrote my first short story at 8 and my first play at 11. And at 17, I wrote my first play. That was a little longer because the other one was a little short and I did it in my backyard. But this one I got produced. And it felt so good that when it got produced at this theater festival at 18, that I felt finally heard. I feel that as a woman, as a person of color, especially if you're a big girl, that you're invisible. It's like you can be invisible so many times over, right? And it's sad because this feeling of being not seen and not heard is really painful. So I carried this pain with me. And, you know, um, my dad was a macho. He's progressed since then. But it was really hard to be me because I was a very sensitive child. I'm very empathic. And I'm also very bright. And I'm also a little obnoxious because, I have ADD. So sometimes I say the truth and I don't think about it. I just say it, and then people look at me like, ah. So it was tough being a teenager. So at 17, I was just overwhelmed, depressed, and I had thought about suicide. And luckily, I discovered I kept journals. And at 17, I remember I just was so depressed that I wrote all of my rage and all my pain and suffering on the page. I put it on the page, and I wrote this play called Simply Maria or the American Dream. And as a result of writing this play, I was able to cope with my depression. I was able to get a scholarship to go to New York University. I was able to get a production, and I was able to start my career as a writer. So I'm so happy that I was smart enough at 17 to not do something destructive, but to take my coraje, my rage, and to channel it and to do something creative with it. I always tell people of color, look, it's being angry is a good thing if it allows you to transition out of that anger and to use it as fuel for creativity and passion, right? anger is a good thing because anger allows us to challenge injustice. Okay, anger, when you feel anger, is because someone has crossed your boundary and you're saying no. Okay, so getting angry and saying no is a very powerful tool that helped me survive and helped me become a very creative person. So I wrote this play. This play got produced, and then I met Luis Valdez, and then he produced my play. And but I'm skipping something very important, which is really the lesson here. So I got to go to the Los Angeles County High School for the Arts. And I remember that, most of the plays that we studied were obviously written by white men because that's the classic theater is white men, And even though there's Ibsen, who writes about women, they're all white men. So I was lucky that because I'm very funny, I got cast in some roles. But it became very obvious pretty soon that as soon as I graduated from high school, that I was only going to get to play maids or hookers, right? As a Latina, that was it. In 1987, that was kind of it, the choice, or the hot señorita. If I got lucky, I could be. If I was sexy and thin enough, then I could play the hot señorita. Wow. So then I decided that I had to become a writer. Otherwise, I had to give up acting, or otherwise, I just have to accept to be marginalized. And how it happened was that I had a wonderful teacher who told me the truth. She said, you're a very talented actress, but in this business, if you're not a thin woman, you're never going to get to play the lead. Only thin women get to play the lead because men write all the roles, men create all the stories, men produce and direct them, and men basically get to be the heroes, and they get to rescue the girl, the pretty skinny girl. And I guess these women need to be skinny enough so they can lift them up into the sunset and be the heroes. So we were basically living in a man's paradigm. We're living in a white man's story, and we get to be the protagonist in his story. And she didn't tell me this to be mean or bad. She just told me the reality because she herself had been discriminated as a big woman, and she lost weight, and then she got to play lead. So she was just telling me so that I wouldn't be devastated or shocked or surprised if I didn't get any opportunities. And I already knew I was like marginalized because here my name is Maria Lopez, that's my real name, and here I am Mexican and I'm overweight, and I tell people I was the perfect minority. All I needed to be was a lesbian, and then I'd be every kind of minority. Because I do have some physical challenges and ADD. So anyway, I'm a creative mess, but I use it for creative force. So anyway, so I was, at first I tried losing weight, and I thought, okay, if I lose weight, then I'll get some acting roles. And it occurred to me that if I lost weight, then I would be told that I would have to, change my name. Anyway, I jumped ahead. Sorry. See, my nonlinear brain. Anyway, so she told me this, right? And I remember I got really sad, because I thought she was right, and that's why I tried losing weight. But at some point, I got really upset. And I didn't get upset at me because I looked within and I said, wait a minute, I'm Mexican. Is that my fault that I'm Mexican? No. I'm a woman. Is that my fault that I'm a woman? No. I'm a working class person. Is that my fault that I'm a working class person? No. I have all these things going on. Is that my fault? Did I do that? And I was like, no. So there was a part of me that said, well, then why do I need to be ashamed? Why does society dictate to me that I have to be ashamed for being Mexican, for being a woman, for being a working class person, for having a mental disorder or this creative brain that I have? And when I realized that I didn't need to carry any kind of shame, okay, because shame is the tool of the oppressor. If they can make you think you're the person that's wrong, if there's something wrong with you and you buy it and you buy into it and then you say yes, then that's how you are defeated before you even get a chance to fight. So for me, I was like, well, then I'm not going to be ashamed of being Mexican, a woman, and a working class person, and a person who's very sensitive, because I didn't make any decisions about that. This is who I am. So I refused to be ashamed of who I am and instead said, well, just because all the men write all the roles and it's white men writing those roles, well, then maybe I need to start writing the story so that in my story, someone like me can be the heroine, the protagonist, the person we cheer for. And that's when I made a huge realization that I had to be the protagonist of my own life, that I had to be the one that said, no, look, yeah, maybe it's great to be a white guy in society, but you know what? There are a lot of amazing things about being a woman and about being a person of color and a Mexicana, a Chicana, and a person with a very creative mind. So I decided to start writing plays where I could be the protagonist, where it was my story. And that didn't come easy, let me tell you, because at that point, like, I hadn't seen anybody on TV that looked like me. So for me to think and to have the guts and the audacity to think that I mattered, especially when I was undocumented, it was a real leap of faith. And I was so lucky that I had a teacher who told me that I had to write about my life. That if I wanted to be a writer, I could not write about boys. I was 16. I could not write about white girls, that I had to write about my life. And I was like, well, I don't really matter. And it was sad to admit those things to myself. I don't really matter. I'm nobody. I'm nothing. I mean, I had tremendous low self-esteem. So the courage it took to say, okay, I'm going to write my life and I'm going to make myself matter and I'm going to tell my story. It was such an act of liberation and an act of courage that at 52, I look at the 16-year-old girl who had to value herself, because I felt so devalued in every which way by everyone, including my parents. Because in my family, you know, if you were a girl, you were basically here to be of service to a man. You were basically here to serve your father, your husband, and your son, right? And you had like, you shouldn't have dreams of your own. Like, you were just here to be somebody's servant in somebody else's story, right? So for me to say that my story mattered and that I mattered and that I wasn't here just to be somebody's sirvienta, somebody's like maid, was a courageous act. So a lot of us have to do that in order to imagine ourselves in places that the media hasn't put us in, right? So we really have to use our imagination and say, what's in my heart? What's the desire in my heart, especially as an actor? What kind of roles could I play, right? You know, now, like, I want to write roles about wise women, about women in their 50s and 60s and 70s who are kicking ass, okay? Like a kick-ass curandera, like a bruja, like this wise woman, like a judge. These types of roles, society, like, we hardly ever see them. And so these are the roles that I want to see, because I can imagine myself as a powerful woman doing all these things, because I am that powerful woman. So especially if you're an actor or writer, you have to say, you know what is my heart tell me? What is the desire that guides me? And that's how you'll be able to find the roles, you know, and write the roles and the stories. There are a lot more stories that need to be told. And women, especially now, are finally getting the right to tell our stories our way, because we are finally believed and we are finally valued, because we have valued ourselves and our story. So I wrote Real Women Have Curves because I wanted to celebrate the fact that I was a woman, a Latina, that had curves. I wanted to walk as a proud person, especially after I got my green card. And so I wrote this play to say, look, I'm here. I matter. This is my body. This is who I am. You know, it's sad that in society, only beautiful, thin women get to be heard. All women need to be heard. All people need to be heard. So I wrote Real Women Have Curves, and it makes me so happy to know that both the play and the movie have been so successful. I really feel that I channeled it, that it was divinely given to me, that it's a celebration of the divine feminine, because all these messages have taught me a lot of powerful lessons. And I'm also happy that over 500 Latina actresses have gotten the opportunity to play these roles in Real Women Have Curves, and that the movie is going to be one of the movies opening the Museum of Motion, the Museum, I can't even say right now, it's late right now, oh my God. the Motion Picture Academy Museum, my movie is going to be one of the first movies that's going to open the museum. Or, like, even like, I became a filmmaker because uh, I was so inspired by Spike Lee, Do the Right Thing. And I'm so honored that my movie, his movie, and a couple of other amazing movies that really celebrate people of color, women, and made history or herstory in some way are going to be opening the museum. And I'm going to finally get to hang out with Spike Lee and be like, wow, he inspired me and look where I'm at. Hopefully my work has inspired you. I know it has inspired a lot of people. I hope it inspires more people to tell more stories about the value of women, the value of people of color. Because I tell people, we don't, I don't come from like, oh, you should write stories about Latinos because it's the right thing to do. Oh, you should write stories about people of color or physically challenged or people with challenges, with their physical body. You should not do us a favor, because you're not doing us a favor. The way I see it is, no, there are so many amazing stories of people of color because they deal with community. There are enough stories about white men saving the world. Okay, we don't need any more of those because they didn't save the world. They screwed it up. It's going to take people of color. It's going to take women. It's going to take people from a different perspective, background, and understanding and level of compassion to transform the world and to harmonize our planet so that we can restore it back to harmony so that it works for everyone, not just a small percentage of people. So it really requires us to tell new stories. And the new story is this, that it's not a white guy that comes in and saves the planet and saves the world or, like rescues people. The only way we transform the world is by people creating community, because most of our problems have been created as a result of individuals thinking solely of themselves and their selfish needs. And it created disconnection with Mother Earth, a disconnection in every which way. So it's going to take community and people of color who value community, or anyone who values community, but it tends to be people of color, because that's how we operate. Part of the reason, we're not the 99%, the 1%, and we're the 99%, is because we think collectively. We know that doing something has repercussions, and we have to think of the familia in a small way, in a big way, in whatever way, in a planetary, humanitarian way. And that's how we're going to transform the world. So our stories are necessary. Now, the reason I started a theater was because at some point, even though my play was very successful, I could not get a production of Real Women Have Curves in Los Angeles. I had 19 productions, and no one would produce my play in Los Angeles. And I was like, well, I can't believe it. Like, how could my play be produced in Sarasota, Florida, where there's nothing but retired Republicans, white retired Republicans? And yet my play could be produced there, but in Los Angeles, not one theater was interested, even though I approached several theaters. And I got so upset, because at first I was like, oh, if you see yourself as a victim of like people keeping you out, there's no power in that. But if you realize, okay, there's an opportunity here that these people are missing, because this play is a hit. So whatever theater produces it, it'll be a hit. If it's done well, marketed well to the community, I know how it could be a hit. And no one's taking this opportunity. Well, then you know what? I realized that I had to produce it myself. I couldn't wait and complain any longer. I tell people, look, if you've complained enough, right? Like at least 3 times about something, you either, at the 3rd time, you have to shut up or do something about it. So I guess I complained enough that my friend told me, hey, why don't you do it? And I was like, And I said, you know what, you're right. Why should I give everybody else the profits? Why should I give everyone the prestige and the opportunity? I should do it. And so I produced a play. It was so successful that's how I got the movie made. George LaVue, producer, saw it, and he saw the play, he loved it, and he helped me champion the production, and it became a very successful movie, and it won all these awards. And so I was so happy with my production that I decided to produce more plays. And at some point, I realized, shoot, I need to start my own theater, because that way no one can tell me, no, you can't produce this. So I started producing theater. And the way I produce theater is this. I started producing plays for our community. I started teaching writing to empower the community to tell our stories, our way, for our people. If people from the outside community want to join in and celebrate with us, great, but they're not necessarily for them. If they want to expand themselves and come witness our journey, our story, wonderful. So I did that. And the way I create theater is this. I ask, who is being left out of the theater, right? So of course, Latinos, women, because even though there are women, it tends to be white women. And then I also realized, oh, wait a minute, LGBTQ people are being left out. Their stories are not being told, and especially Latino LGBTQ stories are not being told. So I started mentoring LGBTQ Latino writers so that we could have these stories to produce. And then I said, who else is being left out? And then I said, well, the deaf community. And I was lucky that I had a very brave woman who wanted to study playwriting with me and the classes that I usually teach at my theater, who wanted to be a voice for the deaf community because she had a son who was deaf, whose dream was to be an actor. And she knew how hard that would be. So she wanted to create plays so that he could star in them. And she wanted to be a voice for this community. And I really supported her. And she was so brave. And so she started writing about that. And we were able to produce plays about the deaf community, about what it's like to be to an immigrant in a world in the US when you're undocumented and you're deaf. And we said, wow, we need more stories for this community. And then I've also realized, wow, we need stories for people who have physical challenges. I have physical challenges now as I'm getting older, and I've become even more aware. And so the way I do theater, because see, I don't do anti-racist theater. I don't resist anything. Anytime you resist something, you will create it. But anytime you say, and you come from love and you choose, you say, wow, how can we make theater a celebration of everybody's lives, not just a certain few people? And also, how can we make theater a human right, meaning that it's not just an elitist art form? Because I tell people, theater saved my life. It really did. And I know it sounds dramatic, like, oh, theater saved my life. No, theater saved my life because had I not really done theater, discovered theater, written plays, I assure you I would be dead by now. But instead, I chose to tell my story. And the reason I love theater and the reason I produce theater and I work with actors is because I tell people, look, anyone can be a theater producer, anyone could create, because in order to do theater, you just need two people, okay? Everything else is extra, all right? If you're like, oh my God, I don't know, I can't produce theater right now. You just go, no. Theater is simply one person telling the truth and someone else witnessing it. Okay? Someone tells the truth, someone witnesses it. That's theater. And when someone tells the truth, especially about something that they are ashamed of, something that lives in the dark, in their psyche, in their corazón, in their spirit, something that really causes them shame, and someone else witnesses them with compassion and love, you can heal that. And I tell you, like, I used to do theater thinking it was just theater, and then I realized that as a curandera, as a shaman in training, this is the most healing process where someone tells the truth, someone witnesses it, and then God takes the pain away. God takes the shame. And so for me, this is a healing practice, not just an art form. This is why I do it, and I keep doing it, and I keep doing it, and I keep telling stories. Because I want to live in a world where we are not ashamed of being human. We're not ashamed. Because when you can embrace your flaws and realize, oh my God, if I was perfect, it would be so boring. And I would hate to be bored. So I have all these amazing flaws that give me such an insight, such a rich experience about being human that, wow, I'm grateful for this opportunity to love myself. Every flaw you have is an opportunity to love yourself, right? Like sometimes when I'm like, I look at my little fat over here on my arms and I go, oh, I have a fat arms because I never really exercise because I'm always typing. And I remember one time I had this insight that I thought, well, what if I was already perfect? And this little piece of fat right there was the one flaw I had. And its sole purpose was there just to remind me to love myself. that it wasn't even like anything physiological, that it was just like, there, mira, abrázate, abrázate. Embrace this little fat, love yourself, And I was like, oh, that's true. You know what? You're right. What if every flaw you have on you, every flaw, every mistake you've made is the opportunity to love and accept and embrace yourself? And in doing that, then you could embrace and love and accept the flaws in other people. And you'd stop judging yourself. Anyway, so theater for me would be the opportunity for all of us to, in a sense, share our souls, be naked in our souls, and to love ourselves and to have other people witness us. And theater is magical because I've watched hundreds of plays, and I can tell that people come in at a certain frequency or energy, or there's a heaviness, and they leave lighter. And I know that this play was able to give people a sense of release or love or self-acceptance. So that's why I do it. I'm so grateful that Real Women Have Curves has been so successful. I am so excited that the producers of Chicago and the Sergio Trujillo, who won the Tony for Best Choreography last year, he was undocumented. So he read Real Women Have Curves, and he wants to turn it into a musical and direct it. And I was just so blown away because I thought, oh my God, let's pray that it gets on Broadway, and that would be just my dream come true. And so, since Real Women Have Curves since when it came out, there have been changes. Now, more casting notices are open. Like, and what's so great too is that oftentimes they'll state, like an America Ferrera type or a girl with curves, that the casting directors are a little bit more open-minded. They've been educated a little more. There are more opportunities now. Everywhere you see people saying, oh my God, we need inclusion. We need to have more female directors. So I do think that changes are coming. I do think that a lot has changed since Real Women. I still don't think enough, because I know that I'm trying to sell the TV show, and I've had problems selling it, So maybe once the TV show gets sold, then I'll know for sure that things have changed, because I started as a screenwriter when I was 21 years old. I'm one of the youngest screenwriters admitted to the Writers Guild. And I had 3 TV shows in development with 3 different networks and 3 different genres when I was 25 years old, which is absolutely incredible. Now that I'm 52, I realize how incredible that was. But we could not get a Latino show on the air in 1995 because the idea of Mexicans being human beings was, I guess, too controversial. I tell people that I was working with Norman Lear, and even with one of the most famous TV producers, we couldn't get it on TV. It was devastating for me. It's been really hard, but I still keep doing it because I know that we need to hear everybody's story because we need to learn from each other. I want to share just last bits of advice because I only have 30 minutes and it's almost over. The most powerful thing you can do as an artist is to declare yourself a winner and declare yourself an artist, and to never wait for someone to validate you and call you an artist or a winner. I have gotten rejected like 1,000 times, but I choose to call myself a winner because I have not given up. I choose to focus on the wins and not the losses. I also see the losses or the rejections as an asset because I go, you know what? I've learned from all my mistakes. But I also have learned that sometimes the rejection has nothing to do with you. It just has to be that some people are closed-minded. And that's okay. You create your own opportunities, but you can never wait for anyone to declare you an artist. All right? When I've declared myself an artist, I don't care who agrees with me or disagrees with me. That's how I know I'm an artist. Okay? And I've declared myself the winner because I have the right and I choose to call myself a winner. In this business, everyone will try to define you. You have to define yourself, and you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? And you have to know that the only reason we do this is to inspire other people. If you're trying to become famous or rich or any other reason, go get therapy. It's cheaper, it's easier. We are here to inspire one another. Hopefully, I have inspired you. Congratulations. I can't wait. And Confessions of Women from East LA. Oh my God. Yay. Okay. Thank you so much. Gracias.